Today, we're going to be going through a framework that has helped hundreds of companies make millions in revenue. If this is the first time you and I have met, my name is Paul Leon. I've worked with over 500 teams, and I like making content like this so other people managers and trainers like yourself can level up and help members of your team improve the skills they need to be more successful. And we're starting now. So the first letter in this framework starts with the letter A, and this is what they call the ADDIE framework. And if you never heard of this, stay with me, but I'm going to go through this letter by letter. So A is for analyze. I'm going to talk through from my personal experience in working with 500 teams. So when it comes to the word analyze, what we typically try to recommend is always look at your primary data first. What data points can we use to be able to start building out the content? You always want to start there. So for example, if I was building out sales content, you might be using secondary data if that's not available to you. So you might go on Google or ChatGPT and just kind of start sifting through. Like typically one data point that always comes out is 80% of salespeople never follow up past the 5th follow-up call. And if you follow any true trainers on the subject matter, you know that sales starts after the 5th call. And another data point is that 54% of salespeople don't even follow up once. Those are an example of 2 data points you might use to analyze when you start building the content. And you want to try to get as much information as you can from your primary stakeholders. Usually a marketing department is going to have a lot of that. If you're working for a big company like myself, start leveraging those key stakeholders because again, you're all on the same team. If you do use secondary data, especially if you're going to be doing a presentation that's externally facing, just make sure that you cross-check it with stakeholders and the right recommended teams, because the one thing you don't want to do is go in blind and start shooting for the moon and not cross any stakeholders. That's a really big miss. So please don't do that. The next letter is design. So let me talk through what I mean when I say design. So the first thing you want to get are the brand colors. A lot of big companies are very hard on what brand colors they use. And they spend a fortune on design and marketing teams to ensure that they're picking the best colors. Like what are those prescribed color codes? And what are the approved fonts that we need to be using in this content? And you can always push back if you have a difference of opinion. Obviously, they're going to be king at the end of the day. So, for example, I personally like Calibri. I don't know if I'm saying that word right, but that's usually the font that I like. I don't like thin fonts like Times New Roman or something else along those lines, especially when creating like core content. Kind of hard to read. And the older you get, sometimes they say your eyes hurt. I know me, I have like a 5.5 in my contact lens. So I've always had bad eyes. So can't really relate. The next letter is develop. So you've done analyze, you've done design, you have all the fonts, the colors, and everything you need. Now it's time to start building your content. So one of the things you can obviously do is you can use AI. In fact, what I would encourage you to do, if you want to prompt AI properly, what you can do is use something called this is a framework that I use a lot in a lot of my AI building before I start using AI like Copilot. I like Copilot in companies because little to no leakage, and it's typically approved by most. But when I build AI, I will typically frame it through what the goals I have, and I'll put this in a Word doc before I put it in Copilot or whatnot. What's the goal of what I want to do in this conversation or chat? The context of what we're doing, because AI needs to know that. And then what is the command? That's important. And then what is the format? That's not my own, but it's something that I've seen and used a lot and recommended from other leaders that I work with. So what I'll do is I'll put in, let's say I'm building a guide. I'll put in the goal for the guide and I'll put it in bullet points. I'll put the goal, I'll put the context, the colors, fonts, etc., command, and then I'll put what the format. So if you can't use like first person things like you want to make sure you put that in. Right? This is the important thing. After you have your prompt written preemptively, end it with a question to say, confirm your role in this chat. This is something I do with AI. I'll do this a lot, especially with Copilot, because what happens is then when my inputs come out, my outputs are a lot better, which is why I'll use that. And what I would also encourage you to do is put in your prompt to say, test all of this content through the ADDIE framework. So we've gone through develop. The next letter is implement. So you've analyzed your content, we've done our design, we have our development. Now it's time to implement it. And by implementing, that means we're going to put it in play, obviously. Now, if it's internal, you're probably going to do your presentation with your stakeholders and start putting that content in. But if it's external, let's say you're training field reps or people out there in the field, what's really important is the next letter, which I think 2 and 2 go together very closely, and that is evaluate. I feel that once you're past this stage, these two are then heavily linked. I would probably call this the improvement phase here. If I was to map this out a little further, this is the development stage here. This is your implementation feedback loop stage. Okay, so we'll put another arrow and kind of see that loop. Oh, I have bad handwriting. Now, for whatever reason, people misevaluate in like 9 out of 10 companies I work with. And here's the thing, whether you're a sole proprietor, LLC, or you're a big company, mid-size, doesn't matter. For whatever reason, most companies miss the evaluate stage. I don't know if it's an insecurity thing. I don't know what the reasons are. But what's important about this stage is every time you do the training, you do a debrief within 24 to 48 hours, usually in a business day. And all that debrief sessions are simply just to talk about what were the gaps we had in this last training, what could have been better. Because here's the facts. You might build the world's greatest content. Let me just tell you from experience, it doesn't matter how great you feel it is. It only matters how great the team and the customer feels. You have to obsess about the customer experience. And sorry, I was a little aggressive. But what's important here, and I'll give you an example. So I was doing a training once, and a guy in the training actually said, you know, you're just trying to make money off me. You don't really care about me. You don't really care about my success. And at the time, we were training a software where it was like a couple $100. And the way I responded, I didn't think it was bad, but the way I said was, I said, you're right. I am trying to sell you something for $200 because I believe in this solution. I believe if you fully maximize its features, implement it into your process, you're going to be able to give better quotes, stronger customer experiences, and win more sales. And yes, I will make money as a result, and you will make money as a result, and we'll both win. And the only thing that I feel that I want to challenge you on is, do you really think I don't care about you? He didn't say anything. And he goes, I'm sorry. Now, we ended up being buddies and everything worked out well. But we had the debrief session. And somebody in the debrief session, like, even though like I felt I handled it very, very well, because I think sometimes we're all guilty of an ego, me included. I have made that mistake. Even though I felt I handled it really well, another person on the team who was a little more soft-spoken, like didn't speak out a lot, she spoke very softly and she goes, I did like how you handled it for the most part. My only concern is because there were other people in the room, he could have felt publicly embarrassed. It might be best for next time if somebody says that to say, hey, can we take it offline and speak on the side? I just want to make sure I give you the attention you deserve one-on-one. And everybody got quiet. And I think there was this moment where she may have felt a little nervous. And I said, you know what? You're right. And that is some really strong feedback that I needed to hear to get better. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. That's why it's so important, this evaluation stage here. This is where growth happens faster. This is where that ignorance tax gets taken care of. And what this will do, this will feed in to your process and overall level up your experience a lot faster. For more content like this that's free, visit our website at themanagersmic.com. If you sign up for our newsletter, we actually have a script we send you automatically, and you actually get some AI frameworks that you can pretty much copy and paste if you want to level up your sales scripting or guides future state. Anywho, that's it for me. My name is Paul Leon, and I'll see you on the next video.